So I think like when I think of me or anyone sort of doing that to God, I imagine that he would be sad, like, oh, I want to connect. Like, I want to be in relationship, you know?
Yeah.
But instead we're there like with our long laundry list of things that we need from him.
This God is saying, I want to serve you and I want to meet your needs. I want to provide for you. I want to bring you joy. But we reduce that to, God, you must do that the way I expect. Welcome to another episode of the New Life Podcast. We are all about bringing community, authenticity, and value to you as our listeners. We are a tool for community. We are talking today about, we were kind of going back and forth on what we were going to talk about. We landed on this. We're going to talk about how to ask God for what you want. How to ask God for what you want. Because some people, they be asking in all kinds of ways, and they sound like little children, like begging, desperate, entitled. So we're going to get into a lot of that because there's a way to do it well and a way to do it, in relationship to God. So today it's just Lauren and I. Abel's out. He's in my hometown right now in Southern California, San Bernardino.
Enjoying the sunshine.
I'm very jealous of him. He's like hanging out in the mountains, all kinds of stuff. He's doing training though. He's working.
Okay. Next podcast, he's alone. No, I'm just kidding.
he'll be.
You're on your own.
So, Lauren, I have a question for you. Okay. If you came across a lamp at a thrift store and you rubbed it and a genie came out of it and asked you, he said, "Hey, you got 3 wishes. What would you wish for?"
Oh man. I mean, my immediate response is money, but that's just because
wow,
it's a relevant
materialistic
need in my life and also a lot of people I'm talking to. So that's my first response. But if I thought about it more, there probably would be a more meaningful answer. What would you say?
That's a good question. I did not think about it. I should have. This has backfired. Just thinking about your money thing though, what happened? Your money will run out, what if you ask for
That's true.
What if you ask a sizable pay raise?
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Because then it's like a regular flow,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's a better answer.
But the thing with genies, this is what I've learned from Aladdin. This is what I've learned from all kinds of Fairly Odd Parents, all these cartoons I've seen.
Throwback.
There's always a catch.
That's true.
There's always a catch because, I don't know. What if the pay raise, what if the company can't shoulder that and then it goes into bankruptcy?
True.
All because you have this.
See, that's why if you just ask for money, then it's just money that you're not really.
Yeah, I guess so. That just seems so limiting though. I don't know.
That's
Okay.
True. That's true. All right. Well, come up with a better answer then.
I should have thought of a good answer that would make me look good, but I didn't. The reason I asked that though is because as we have this document where we have ideas of topics, and you had put this one in.
Yeah.
I forget what you said. I think you had put it. God is not a genie. Mm-hmm. God is not a genie. So that's an interesting way to enter into the conversation. So maybe you can just start by telling us why that is the way that you articulated it in the document. What made you think of that idea? God is not a genie, and that's an important thing to talk about.
I think if here we are being honest again. But I think for me, what I found myself kind of praying like that. I was praying to God, almost like, okay, God, can I just have this? Okay, thanks. Can I have this? Okay, can I have this? Can I have this? And rather than choosing to connect with Him or well, what do you think? And having a conversation and just it was I need this, I need this, I need this, and it was a little bit more of a stressful time in life. So I feel like when I am feeling anxious or a little overwhelmed, that's my go-to is just kind of treat God like a genie and ask for things immediately rather than think about, okay, what am I really asking for right now and what do I really need right now? Because this is my immediate go-to. Okay, God, could I just could you just fix this? Could you just do this? Could I just have this? Instead of being could you help in this? I just wanted it done and gone. So then that kind of sparked my thought process of writing that down. But I was also in conversation with quite a few people about relationship versus task. So how even in the workplace, we are so quick to demand that the task be done, but forget the person that we're talking to. And so I've like, and even my roommate, I've talked about her a lot, but she's always like relationship over task. And this was like 6 years ago. And I was just like, if I was stressed, it's all downhill from there. Like, I'm not at all going to think about you as a person. I'm just going to make sure that you get what I'm asking you to get done. But I've realized that if you prioritize the relationship over the task, then it just makes the whole experience better. So I've, still struggled with that a little bit, but I'm working towards like, okay, this is a person you're talking to. You're not demanding something of them or something from them. You are to connect with them, and then you can address the need. But like, connect because you actually care, not because you need something from them. So that's kind of like what sparked the topic idea.
Okay, so you're seeing this like relational thing between people, where when you want something need something to get done, maybe like their coworkers or people who work for you or with you, or I don't know. Do you even see this in personal relationships? That would be an interesting thing to hear from you. Like, how that is it just in the workplace, or are you?
No, it's definitely at home too. Ask Audrey.
Oh, so you're saying like, the living
ask
room
my
needs
roommates
to get clean, like
it's just like, can you do the dishes? Like, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you clean the bathroom? Like, because it's like I'm pulling my weight. Like, you got to pull your weight, but I'm forgetting like, oh, maybe she's stressed, or maybe she had a really long day, or maybe it's just she's just having a really hard time in life. Like, so have some grace. You don't you assume that you just need a task done to relieve your plate, but then I'm assuming that nothing's going on with her. She's just being lazy, but when in reality, she has a full schedule, she's tired, and maybe she had a really hard day. But I'm like demanding that she does the dishes. It actually hurts our relationship.
Okay, so you're seeing this like this belittling almost to like, or this limiting to like the relationship being I need this to get done, or I want this to happen, rather than like that actual connection that could bring that forth. So like, how do you see that mapping on to, I know you shared a little bit already, but how does that map on then to God? You were saying like, your roommate might have things going on in their life, or they might be tired, or they might be like sad and all this stuff. When we think of God, like those are very like human
things,
situations. How do you see that mapping onto God? Or I guess what I'm saying is, why do you think that? I can see why that is a problematic way of relating to people. That's actually also a thing I've really learned too. But how do you see it being a problematic way to approach God specifically?
I mean, the whole thought process behind the idea of relationship over task, that phrase, is because God's relational. And so if we're supposed to like bear his image, then I need to value relationships and people. Because I think like, let me backtrack a little bit. I think that God values me as a person more than what I do, right? Now, some days that's harder to believe because we live in an age of productivity, busyness, get things done. You have to check the box. And if you don't check the box, it's like, did I really accomplish something? Am I really worth something? So it's like a fine line between like attaching what I do to my self-worth. So I feel like if I truly believe that I matter to God as a person, if I didn't have this job, if I didn't have my accomplishments, if I didn't travel, like, would I still be worth something valuable to God? And I think like it comes like, so that I don't know if that's making sense, but to me, it's the same with God. He values me more than what I do. So if that's what he values, and I say, I love God, I want to become more like him, then I should, first I suddenly become aware of how I'm not like that in real life and how I prioritize task over relationship a lot of times. So my go-to is to practice prioritizing relationship over my task, or prioritize relationship over my ask of the person, which is harder. It's really hard sometimes.
Yeah. What makes
because
it
it
hard?
takes time. Like it takes time and it takes effort and it takes intentionality. And sometimes you're just like, I have so much pressure on me. I can't think about how you feel right now. But the reward and the response and the task is so much like just well done because that person feels cared for and seen, and their worth doesn't come from what they do. Their worth comes just from being a human, and like me showing love and asking how they're doing and like being intentional with them. I feel like in the end, the task just doesn't matter, but it gets done better because the person's like, oh, like Lauren actually cares for me. It's not just like I'm her, I need to get things done for her. Like, so that's kind of how I pertain it to God, is that he does this with me. So I should also replicate that and practice it in my own life. But I've seen the payoff. Like, I have great relationships because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Better than before when I was like task over relationship, especially when I'm under pressure or stressed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've learned always, whenever you need something from someone, always start with a question and ask them first. Hey, how are you doing? Make that connection. And like, I like it, what you said, not just so that you can get something from them, but to remind yourself, hey, they have things going on too.
Yeah.
And you're like kind of coming into their space, their time, their whatever, and asking for something. And yeah, you can only do that so much. Ask and ask and ask before the relationship runs dry.
Yeah.
Which I think also maps on to like what happens with the Lord. I like what you're pointing out, which is that God prioritizes, and this is something like we can shift in our image of God sometimes, our view of God, is that God prioritizes relationship. And like you said, he doesn't demand us to constantly do, and do. Yet we treat God that way in our prayers. We have so many wants and desires and needs that when we go to him, when we actually finally like take the time to sit and pray and to speak to him, it's like, hey God, I'm having trouble with this. Can you help me?
Yeah, it's not prayer. It's like demands.
Yeah.
Like, I'll trade. Like, I'll do my best if you give me this.
Yeah. It's like I have this need. I guess I'll turn to God in prayer, but I'm not turning to God in prayer when like all my needs are fulfilled or satisfied.
Yeah. And I imagine in that moment that God actually feels a little sad. Because I feel sad when someone comes up to me and just demands something be done, or like, hey, where's that at? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And like, I clearly know and I see like this person is stressed, but it just communicates to me that I'm not as worth what, like, I think, like this person doesn't see me as like worth relationship. So I think like when I think of me or anyone sort of doing that to God, I imagine that he would be sad, like, oh, I want to connect. Like, I want to be in relationship,
Yeah.
But instead we're there like with our long laundry list of things that we need from him.
Yeah.
I think it just like makes me sad thinking about it,
Yeah. And I think we can sometimes have the mindset too, where like we have this laundry list, this to-do list, this task list, and saying like, God, please do these things. And I think what makes it even harder is sometimes when God doesn't do those things or doesn't answer the prayer like we would hope or when we would hope, then we get upset and we get frustrated or even like start to question like,
is God good? Does he really love me?
Yeah. And we start to kind of spiral, which like, I don't want to belittle some of the things that the needs that we have, the questions we have, that the desires we have are important. The things we ask of God are really important and really deep. But when you put it into perspective, it almost does feel silly. Like I feel silly when I get mad at God or upset at God or frustrated at God when things aren't going my way.
Yeah.
The way that I want them to.
Or life's a little rough and you're like, well, you didn't listen.
Yeah. God, okay.
Yeah.
I see how it is. Yeah. One way that a word that people use for these kind of relationships is like transactional relationships. It's when it's like the relationship you have with a, like a, I was going to say merchant. We don't call people merchants. This is the Middle Ages. With like a vendor or
a store.
Yeah. Someone who's selling you something.
A merchant.
Right? My relationship to them is I pay them for something, they give it to me.
Right.
And that's the extent of the relationship. And if we're not careful, we can we can treat our relationships with others like that. Hey, I'm coming to you for something. I'm coming to you to receive something, or even in more intense ways to take something.
Whoa.
And we often, that's how we approach our relationship with God, is transactional. Hey, I'm coming to church to get something for you. I am going to like do all the Christian-y things, the reading my Bible, the praying, the like crossing off the lists, so that then you could answer my prayers and like, you know, my life will go well.
Yep. Not to mention the customer service, right? Like if I don't get the best of the best when I ask for it, well, I need it, I deserve it, and that entitlement kind of comes in to like that attitude. I think it was so easy to fall into that with God and asking for things. It's like, well, you didn't give me the best, and you know, I needed $100, but you only gave me $2 that I found on the street. Like, it's like, yeah, customer satisfaction. That's not really in this. Like,
yeah. I'm reminded of another analogy that people use besides the genie one, and I think one thing that's I think stand out to me about the genie analogy is that like if you like read genie, like if you've
watched Aladdin
stories, like all these things, genies are servants to their masters, and they're like
interesting.
They're trapped and they want to be freed and all these things. Yeah. And so like the expectation. So I think what I'm getting at is this: our expectation that God will always do what we want him to do and what we think he needs to do. Is actually reversing our roles, because it's placing God in this servant position that like he's there to serve us and to meet our expectations and desires and wants. And like there's a balance to be had here, because God, like we see in scripture a God who is a servant and who humbles himself and who desires to meet our needs. Like that's the beautiful thing here. But what I think the danger is that we can take advantage of that that relationship that God is offering to us.
Yeah, totally.
As like the God of the universe, almighty and all powerful and creator of all things, all wise, all these things.
Literally
and we're like,
giving you the breath in your lungs right now.
Yeah, and he's like,